We got some news to discuss here on Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Nick Roloff. Some good, and some bad. And it's all regarding the 2025 NFL Draft. And you might be asking yourself, how could the Dolphins be getting good and bad news on a NFL Draft when it's not until late April? I would understand. But the final projections from Over the Cap on comp picks came out. And they are not official. I want to make that abundantly clear. They are not official. But this is where things stand for the Miami Dolphins. Getting a third-round pick for losing Robert Hunt in free agency after he signed a 5-year, $100 million deal with the Carolina Panthers. Getting a fourth-round pick from Christian Wilkins, who signed a 4-year, $110+ million deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. And a seventh-round pick for DeShon Elliott, the safety who left Miami to go to Pittsburgh. And I do want to make this clear, like I just said a second ago. These are just projections. They are final projections, so they are not officially handed out to Miami as of yet, but it is probably the most likely scenario. Over the Cap uses the same type of formula that the NFL uses. There might be some small changes and twitches in the NFL's formula, but it's mostly the same. So this is where things will likely stand for the Miami Dolphins when the comp picks are officially handed out by the NFL over the next 5 or 6 weeks. And over the next 5 or 6 weeks, whenever the news officially drops on the comp picks from the NFL, we will have you covered with a video. So make sure you are subscribed. We're dropping 2 videos almost every single day, and we have live shows on Tuesday. Join the channel so you don't miss a beat around the Miami Dolphins. All right, so as we now look at the picks potentially for Miami here, this is where things stand, and they're projected to get those 3 comp picks, which would bring out their total amount of picks in this upcoming draft to 10, which is very, very nice to say. You see the numbers on screen. You got 1 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, thanks to that comp pick projection. We don't know what the exact number would be, but I just do want to throw out there you're likely going to have a third-round pick, 2 fourth-rounders, 2 fifth-rounders, and then 3 seventh-round picks. So no picks in the 6th round, but 10 picks overall. And that's the good news, right? When you think about what could possibly be good out of these news coming out, is that you have so many darts to throw. You have 10 picks potentially to have in this upcoming draft. Now, maybe they ultimately get more comp picks. Maybe they get less. I doubt it. Or maybe they make a trade where they don't make 10 selections. But I am a massive fan of having a lot of darts to throw at the dartboard, because as we look at this Miami Dolphins depth chart and roster heading into the offseason, they don't have a lot of cap space. And when I mean not a lot of cap space, as we currently stand, they are in the negative. They are in the red. So they have to get over to the green and clear cap space, but also get more underneath that cap number so they can sign free agents in early March for NFL free agency. But also, in order to win around a quarterback getting paid $50+ million like Tua Tagovailoa, you need to have cheap, young, controllable talent for multiple seasons. So having 10 draft picks to potentially add to this roster and fill multiple positions of need and get more depth for cheap is really big-time news for the Dolphins. And boy, Chris Grier better nail a good amount of these picks. And that is where I want to ask you this. Dolphins have 10 picks this upcoming draft. Do you trust Chris Grier to make them and hit on those picks? Type T for trust or type D for don't. You may have asked, well, what's the good news? What's the bad news? Well, here's the bad news. Miami was originally projected to get 2 third-round comp picks, but Christian Wilkins screwed us. And he didn't play enough snaps to earn them a third-rounder. Because when you look at the main formula for comp picks in the NFL, and when they leave that team, the number one thing they look at is the contract. The number 2 thing they look at is playing time. And with both Robert Hunt and Christian Wilkins getting over $100 million, I mean, it was almost guaranteed that you would get 2 third-round picks in return for those 2 players leaving. And it sucks because Christian Wilkins screwed us. He did. He got hurt. He hurt his foot. He only played in 5 games. He failed to play 25% of the snaps this season, and that's why his comp pick fell to the 4th round rather than the 3rd round. If he played just 27% of the snaps for the Raiders this year, I'm pretty sure Miami would be picking twice in the 3rd round. But because he barely played this year due to that foot injury, the Dolphins ultimately lose a full to 35 slots in the draft, and their comp pick will be in the 4th round for losing Christian Wilkins rather than a 3rd. It's a complete bummer. It sucks because you could have had 4 picks inside the top 100. You already have 2 in the top 50 in the 1st and 2nd round. That 3rd round comp pick will be in the top 100. You could have had a 4th if you got the 3rd round comp pick for Wilkins, but now it's going to be in the top 130, 150 because Wilkins got downgraded to a 4th. Let's hope the NFL's formula heavily favors the contract because maybe it could still be a 3rd round pick, but all signs are pointing towards it being a 4th, and boy, does that suck for Miami. And coming up in just a second, I did actually want to highlight some draft targets for the 3rd or 4th round. It's very early in the process, but I did want to look at some names that could be available around the 95 to 150 range for the Fins at certain and various positions that the comp picks could be used on. But before we do that, we are sponsored by Gametime, the #1 ticketing app out there, and it's the only one that I use when purchasing my tickets for live events. Whether it is a comedy show, concert, sporting event, Gametime is how I get my tickets. They have so many great features, one of them being all-in pricing. When you toggle that feature, you see the total price of your ticket up front rather than getting blindsided by fees at checkout. There's another feature called Gametime Picks. When you use that feature, it shows you the great deals. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It shows you the best value for your seat, for your buck. And when you get started with Gametime today, download the app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, first purchase only, but use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off. Shout out to Gametime, lowest price tickets guaranteed. And before we get into more draft targets for the Dolphins, I do think it's important to revisit the biggest needs for the Miami Dolphins. And I'll be honest, these needs could be very different when we're talking about the NFL draft in early April, because we'll have to see how Miami handles the free agency period, as well as kind of that trade market heating up in late February, early March. But right now, interior offensive line is my #1 need at left guard and right guard. Safety is my #2. Off-ball linebacker #2 behind Jordan Brooks. Interior defensive line and backup quarterback. Those are my 5 biggest needs for the Miami Dolphins in order, by the way. And let's start with the quarterback because I know that's what a lot of people are going to want to hear and find out about. These are 6 guys that I could see Miami potentially targeting with that 3rd round comp pick or that 4th round comp pick that they have. Jalen Milroe, I'll be intrigued to see where he ends up going in the draft. It's very early in the process. I think he could go in the 2nd round. I think he could be there in the late 3rd round. Will Howard may have had his stock rise the most out of any of these guys after he just led the Ohio State Buckeyes to a national championship. We know Quinn Ewers is going to be in that range. Jackson Dart is my favorite quarterback out of this group of 6 guys, but he very well could be a 1st-round pick or early 2nd round if he solidifies himself as QB3. And then Curtis Rourke is a sleeper name from Indiana that I want to keep an eye on. 6'5", good arm, accurate, just not very mobile, injury history. But I like Rourke as a developmental guy in the middle rounds. And I'll be honest, the reason why I'm intrigued with these quarterbacks is because it's a weak quarterback class. It just is. It's one of the worst quarterback classes I've seen in the last 10 years probably, only maybe just edging out the 2022 class that had Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Malik Willis. Boy, was that a stinker. But every single team, every single front office will have a different order of draft prospects at the quarterback position. They just will. Some may have Cam Ward 1. Some may have Shadur Sanders 1. Some may have Jackson Dart 3. Some may have Jackson Dart 7. It's going to be very intriguing to see how these quarterbacks ultimately shake out, and it could benefit Miami. Maybe one of their top guys is not valued as much around the league as they thought, and he slips to the end of the 3rd round where they get that comp pick for Robert Hunt, and you get a future quarterback to develop potentially. We'll have to see. And I showed you 6 quarterback prospects I've got my eye on, but let me know who your top quarterback prospect is. Who is your favorite? I'm sure I'll get a lot of Cam Wards down in the comment section, but it's not realistic that Miami takes one in the 1st round. So let me know who is your top QB prospect in the middle rounds. Let's look at some interior offensive linemen that could be available in that range. We did not keep Tyler Booker, the offensive lineman from Alabama, here because he will be gone way before that. But we got Tate Ratledge from Georgia, Connor Colby, Iowa, Luke Condra from Cincinnati, Tyler Cooper from Minnesota, and Miles Frazier from LSU. Listen, I want to make this clear. I mentioned it a couple minutes ago, but like, it is not easy to put a list of prospects together this early in the process because it's not like we've seen the combine, seen them interview. So we don't really know what ranges they're going to go to. I'm just trying to predict potentially what guys could be available. I'll never complain about an Iowa offensive lineman, that's for sure, and Connor Colby. But Tate Ratledge is another really good option. We know Tyler Booker's the top guard, pure guard prospect there is. So maybe the Dolphins target him in the first 2 rounds. But these are some guys that I think could be available in the middle rounds right now. And at the safety position, it's very interesting. One of the guys that I like the most in Kamari Ramsey from USC returned back to college for this upcoming season. And with Malachi Starks and Xavier Watts, 1,000% going in the first 2 rounds, in my opinion, and those are the top 2 safeties without a question. That leaves these 5 in Kevin Winston Jr., who I'm a big fan of out of Penn State. And another name that I want to highlight here on this list is Andrew Mukapa. I think Makuba. Coop said this to me, by the way, I can't get off tangent here, but I was talking to Coop about him, and he told me how to say his name, and I was like, I'm totally going to watch this live, and you saw what happened. I totally did. But either way, he was someone that Coop told me, one of our producers here at Chat Sports, was really solid. And it's a name I'm going to continue to look at here, so I just want to get that out early here on the channel, is that's a name you should look at for the draft. And then the last position we'll look at here, some interior defensive line options in the 3rd or 4th round. We've talked about Simeon Barrow Jr., by the way, from Miami. He's been featured on a mock draft in the past. J.J. Pegues is an interesting name from Ole Miss as well. And I will never complain about a defensive lineman or offensive lineman from Notre Dame, unless your name's Liam Eichenberg and Riley Mills. So these are just some 5 names that I would like you guys to keep an eye out for. And like I mentioned, it's very early in the process. I don't know how many times I'm going to reiterate that, but really we should not start to talk about the list and the board and like who could be available in what slot probably until mid-March. Like the combine is what, late mid-February, and then you have free agency in early March, and then you have that kind of 7-week layoff between free agency and the draft, and that's where the boards and you start to get a clearer picture of who is going to be available, in all likelihood at least, in each specific rounds. But I'm just trying to throw as many names out there as possible, inform you guys about some prospects, and you guys can draw some conclusions to your own right. And make sure you do stay subscribed to the channel because we are going to continue to drop content on a daily basis when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. So hit that sub button. I'll see you tomorrow with more videos. Go Fins.